Hi, my name is Gina Turner. I'm a physiotherapist and Pilates instructor, and I teach Post Natal Pilates for Cape Cadbury Physiotherapy. Now, this is the last in my series of Post Natal Pilates videos for Better Together Dorset. And in this video, instead of a class, I'm going to talk about when it might be the right time to move on from a postnatal class to a regular Pilates class. Plus a little bit of advice about progressing to other forms of exercise. Now, in my postnatal classes, normally I assess everyone individually as to when they might be strong enough and their core muscles ready to progress on to more challenging abdominal work. Unfortunately, this might not be possible for you in the current times, so I'm just going to give a little guide as to how you can judge for yourself whether you feel ready. The most important thing to remember is that if you experience any pain or discomfort with any more challenging exercise, or suffer any episodes of incontinence or feelings of heaviness or dragging in the vagina, then you need to stop, go back to the easier exercises and consult a medical professional such as your GP or physiotherapist. Now, I normally assess people for whether they have a divarication of their tummy muscles, which means a small gap between the two sides of the abdominal muscle that runs up and down here. This is quite common after pregnancy and not necessarily a problem. The most important thing is that your core muscles are strong enough to prevent that gap pushing further apart. Okay, so I'm going to have a look now at showing you how to assess whether your core muscles are strong enough to progress or not. So, lying down in the neutral position, so just tucking your bottom under and sticking your bottom out. Okay, just come to that point in the middle where you're flat on top of your pelvis and there's a little gap between your lower back and the floor, but your back isn't too arched. So that's your neutral position. Now, in this position, we're going to breathe in to prepare. Breathe out. As you breathe out, engage through the pelvic floor, through those lower abdominals, as we have been in all the previous videos, and float one leg up to tabletop. Now from here, you're going to breathe in to hold, and as you breathe out, just slide the ribs down a little way without losing your neutral spine, and tighten those lower abdominals a little bit more and float the other leg up to join it. Okay, breathe in to hold, and as you breathe out, we're going to take one leg down and the other leg down. Now, the important watch point is I'm just going to move my arm out the way so that you can see a little more easily. As you breathe out, slide the ribs down and the second leg comes up to join it. Your tummy muscles should stay as flat with both feet off the floor as they are with one foot off the floor. If you find that as the second leg comes up to join it, your tummy muscles push upwards and your back starts to arch, then you probably don't yet have the core control and strength to be able to manage the double tabletop position, which is required for a lot of regular Pilates classes. You can see whether you're almost there by bending the knees slightly more. So breathe in to prepare. So bringing the knee up, but having the foot heel closer to the bottom. Breathe in to hold. Breathe out. Slide those ribs down. Just gently contract through those lower abdominals and bring the other knee up to join it. Now this is a slightly less challenging position and you might find it easier to hold those core muscles engaged and be able to keep your neutral spine than with the legs in full tabletop. So if you can manage this position with both legs up and your tummy staying pulled in as the other leg comes up to join it, chances are you're ready to do some of the more challenging exercises involving the double tabletop position. Now, the other test that I do for people is the Pilates version of a sit-up. So from here, you're going to breathe in to prepare. Breathe out, again engage through the pelvic floor, through those lower abdominals, and float your head and shoulders up off the floor. Breathe in to hold. Breathe out to come down. Now normally I would check at this point for whether there's a gap or separation between the abdominal muscles, but if this isn't possible, a way to check the strength of the core muscles which are underneath those six-pack muscles is to see whether as you come up, you're able again to hold those tummy muscles as flat with your head and shoulders off the ground as it is with the head and shoulders on the ground. Again, if you come up and you find your tummy pushing up towards the ceiling, chances are you're just not quite strong enough in the middle yet to start any of the Pilates exercises which are based around that sit-up type movement, or any of the more challenging Pilates exercises where you have both your head off the ground and both feet off the ground. Okay, so those are two ways of seeing whether you and testing whether you're ready for something a little more challenging in terms of abdominal workouts. Now, the other thing that I'm quite commonly asked about is when is it safe to go running again after having given birth? Now, the evidence around this is quite mixed, but I tend to follow the guidance from the Association of Pelvic Obstetric and Gynecological Physiotherapists. So the first thing is your pelvic floor strong enough? Can you do 10 quick contractions of the pelvic floor with a maximal contraction each time? So can you do 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10, and each time being able to give a full squeeze of your pelvic floor? The next test is, again, using a maximum contraction of your pelvic floor. Can you hold it for 12 seconds? So holding for the count of 12 and relax. And you need to be able to repeat that 10 times. Okay, so you've got 10 quick contractions, 10 holds, and then can you hold a contraction at your pelvic floor at, they say, between 30 and 50%, which means not a maximum hold, but still being able to have some contraction going. Can you hold that for a full minute? Okay, so that's the first stage, whether your pelvic floor is strong enough to complete those 3 tests. Then after that, there's a further kind of more dynamic tests of your pelvic floor, and see if you can manage the following without any episodes of incontinence, and that's either urinary incontinence or bowel incontinence. Whether you can manage this without any feelings of heaviness or dragging in the vagina, and whether you can manage these exercises without any kind of pain around the hip or pelvic girdle. Okay. Generally, they say not to start running before 3 months after having given birth anyway. So don't push yourself to do too much too quickly. So these are the tests, the dynamic tests of your pelvic floor. Okay. First of all, can you walk for 30 minutes without any problems? Okay, so that's number one. Next one, can you stand on one leg for 10 seconds? Make sure that when you try this, that you try, can you manage it on one leg? And don't forget to try it on the other leg as well. Okay. Now, next one is, can you jog on the spot for a minute? Okay, so this is a test more around the pelvic floor, thinking about whether you've got any problems in any of the areas that I mentioned before. Okay, so that's a minute of jogging on the spot. Can you manage 10 forward bounds? So that's sort of leaping from one foot, I don't have enough space to do 10 in here, from one foot to the other 10 times. Next one is, can you do 10 static hops? Okay, and again, make sure whether you can do it on one leg and the other. So 10 of those on one side and 10 on the other. Last test of the pelvic floor is whether you can do 10 running man on each side. So if you've not come across it before, you're on one leg, supporting leg slightly bent. You're going to lift the knee and the opposite arm and then go forward and up, forward and up. And you should be able to do 10 of these on each leg without too much problem. Okay, so those are the more dynamic tests, both for your pelvic floor and for your pelvic girdle. So checking that you don't have any pain either around the pubic symphysis at the front or any pain around the sacroiliac joint, which is sort of a pain that comes in around here or is sometimes felt in the hips themselves. Okay. The other thing that they advise is to make sure that you're actually strong enough, that your legs are strong enough to start running. Okay. So can you do 20 calf raises on one leg? Now you're allowed a little bit of support for this because it's quite a balance challenge. Okay, so can you go up onto your toes 20 times on one side and 20 times on the other? Okay, just make sure that if you're using a chair or something to balance, that you're not taking your weight through that hand. Another one is, can you do 20 single leg sit to stands? So from a chair, this one is a little bit high. You really ought to be a normal size chair. Can you stand up and sit down 20 times on one leg and 20 times on the other leg? Okay. Finally, in lying, let's just move this back down again. Can you do 20 single leg bridge? So lying on your back, one foot in the air, can you do 20 of those? And again, make sure you try on both sides. And finally, lying on your side, legs out straight, support your head with your arm. Can you do 20 lift and lower of the leg. Okay, again on both sides. If you can manage all of those tests, then you're probably ready to start thinking about running. But make sure that when you do start, that you look out for any symptoms like pelvic floor dysfunction that I've talked about before, or any pain in your joints. Again, if any of these things occur, it might be a good idea to either consult your GP or women's health physiotherapist. A good way to get back into running again, and one recommended, is the Couch to 5K app, which can help you get back into running gently and help minimise the risk of any injuries. You can find more information on this on the Association of Pelvic Obstetric Gynecological Physiotherapists website, or have a look on NHS websites. Okay, thank you.